Welcome to the Social Podcast, where no discussion or debate is off limits.
Hello and welcome to The Social. Joining us today is songwriter and Bare Naked Ladies frontman Ed Robertson. It's so great to see you.
You are not the first person to mess up the name of my band. It's nice to be here.
Oh gosh.
Well, listen, let's start with our first story. Big Bird got vaccinated against COVID-19 recently and took to Twitter to share that his wing is a little sore, but he knows the shot will keep him and others healthy. While many people thanked him for doing his part, he definitely ruffled a few feathers. So, should Big Bird be tweeting about the vaccine? Ed, what say you?
Well, first of all, I'm outraged that they would take a beloved childhood icon and use him to try to do something to protect and better educate and make children feel comfortable with a potentially life-saving vaccination. How dare they?
How dare Sesame Street be progressive? And how dare Sesame Street warp our children's minds with things like teaching about vaccines and racism and breastfeeding and all the things that they've done.
People who are against the vaccine will find any hilltop to fight on about the vaccine, right? All of our experts, all the best scientists say this is the right course of action. And the fact that Sesame Street and the Children's Television Workshop are helping kids to feel more comfortable with perhaps a needle that they're nervous about or they're scared about what it means. I think it's a great thing.
But I mean, okay, first of all, it is a bit funny to think about, first of all, the outrage that was coming at this was based on the tweet that went out. The tweet was promoting the episode, but Ted Cruz, of course, hopped on this and was fueling his fan base with outrage.
Yeah.
And my first question was,
he called it propaganda, I think.
That's right, propaganda. What 5-year-olds on Twitter? What 5-year-old is picking up the Twitter, the tweeting, and doing that?
That's why
maybe he's mad at the parents because parents we should be, I guess, the gatekeepers of what our kids are watching. And he was, I guess, tweeting in response to yet another CNN and Sesame Street co-production. I don't know if you guys ever watched this, but early in the pandemic, pre-vaccines, CNN hooked up with Sesame Street to do really, I found them anyway, really informative specials where they had the characters and Dr. Sanjay Gupta, and they were kind of, explaining in kids speak what this whole thing was. So this is the latest iteration, and I think that's what he was responding to. But we are supposed to be gatekeeping what our kids are watching. So is he mad at the parents, I guess?
Twitter is just the place for people to be mad about everything, and it's kind of like this is happening in two worlds. It's happening on Sesame Street, which is wonderful. I trust Sesame Street. I want them to teach my kids about things like, just straight up the needle. My kids don't like needles. So if they can just talk about needles in an age-appropriate way and say it's not scary, it's good medicine for you, fine, it's all good. But then you take it to Twitter and clearly it's not for the 5-year-olds, it's for the parents. And that's a bit of a, it's a bit of a marketing message to get the message out to parents like, hey, this is happening on Sesame Street. I'm all for that too. I think that's great. Somebody's cell phone is going.
You know what I liked about
Ed, you still here, Ed.
Big Bird calling you.
Yeah.
But I have to say the thing I liked about Big Bird's tweet, I had no idea Big Bird could tweet. But moving on, that he also included this little tidbit about how he didn't even know it was his first vaccine. Apparently, I had vaccines and needles when I was just a baby bird. And I kind of loved that because obviously that's a message to parents to sort of massage their fears, remember back when? And it did make me remember. Remember in primary school, the nurse would just come in, no questions asked, no explaining what this was. And it was just pow. It's oh, okay, I just got that.
Yeah, I mean...
Is it possible that Ted Cruz has mixed up the word propaganda with the name Snuffleupagus?
It's possible there's a lot of mix-up going on there. But okay.
I trust Big Bird more than I trust Ted Cruz. I'll say that much.
I mean, I'm of two minds of this. On the one hand, this really actually isn't anything new. The fact that he's pulling this out and being like, oh my God, it's propaganda. I'm going to age myself right now, but do you guys anyone remember Captain Kangaroo?
Yes.
Right? Way back playback of Captain Kangaroo. So kids show. He was one of many kids shows that actually did an episode where they talked about kids' vaccines. It was the measles, mumps, rubella one. Take a look.
I said, okay, if you don't want the shots, then you won't get shots.
Is that it? I mean, are you just going to let me go out and catch measles and mumps?
But you said that you
Never
didn't.
mind what I said. Have you ever seen a moose with mumps?
What about measles?
That's worse.
So what are you trying to tell me?
I want my shots.
Now that's what I wanted to hear.
I'm going to bet money that there wasn't. That moose probably got the shots as a result, and lots of other kids did too. And I guarantee you there wasn't the uproar at that point in time. But this is a very highly politicized time that we're living in, and it's very highly politicized around vaccinations. And I think we've pointed this out on the show before. This is the first time where we've had such knowledge around brand names. So I wonder, even though Big Bird isn't talking about like Pfizer, I think that part of maybe what people potentially could feel uncomfortable with is the idea that, like, did a pharmaceutical company perhaps spend money on Sesame Street and in order for this? Like, then it does become propaganda. I'm not saying that's what happened. In fact, I'm pretty sure it's not. But I think some people are still feeling like there should be a line where maybe they get to decide what they want to talk about with their kids when it comes to this particular one, even if it's just for the reason of like, oh, my kid might be really nervous around needles or this pandemic. Like I remember early on in this pandemic, my son was watching a lot of a kids show, and Teresa Tam would come on and she'd talk about the coronavirus, and it stressed my kid out. And we realized later on it was better for us to talk about our experience as opposed to the kids' show doing it. I don't know. What do you guys think about
No, absolutely. Well,
I just think it's time for a doctor to step in. I think that, as I said at the beginning, we're the gatekeepers of what our kids are watching. I will say that, as I said, the CNN Sesame Street specials were amazing, as is the new one about the vaccine. But ultimately, everybody who naturally could have questions or nerves about this for their kids, go talk to your doctor. I mean, I think that's the bottom line that we're all probably saying is if you have doubts and fears, especially around needles, maybe Big Bird can help, but who can ultimately help is your doctor.
Listen, guys, I don't have kids, but I'm wondering, would you find it odd if I wanted to hang out with yours? A writer for The Guardian says she hopes her friends are okay with her coming to visit their kids. She loves them so much. So would you find it odd if I, for example, or one of your other friends, preferred hanging out with your kids?
Okay, can we clarify, Jess? Are you coming to hang out, or are you coming over to babysit and get them off my shoulders for 2 seconds? Because there's a difference, right? I mean, listen, when someone's like, in this article, this woman, I think it was a woman, said, I just want to come and hang with your kids because sometimes I kind of like kids better than adults, which, okay. But, like, does that mean I'm still supervising? Like, are we having a chat and you're playing with my kids? Because, like, I have laundry to do. I got to clean my house. So if you're coming to take them off my hands, that's like, yeah, great. But am I the only one who thinks it's a little weird if a grown adult is like, I just prefer to play with only kids? Then I'm like,
Ed, what do you think?
Can we talk about that?
Well, I love kids. I love babies. I'm the first guy to like grab the fussy baby and go for a walk. And I do this magical bounce. I'm the baby whisperer. But then I hand the child back to the parents and I have a grown-up conversation with adults. I love kids. I always say to my friends, yeah, I'll take your kid to the Pixar movie I already want to see anyway. But, I think there is a bit of a strange line in this story.
Yes.
Well, I have to say, I don't prefer the company of my friends' kids to the actual company of my friends. And I'm going to say also that, all kids are miracles and they're precious and they're so beautiful. But some are just way more entertaining and smart and funny than other kids. I have a group with 3 girlfriends, and between the 3 of them, they have 7 kids. And 2 out of those kids, like even the other parents, like just sort of watch them like, wow, those kids are so great.
Are the other ones duds?
Even the parents of the duds are just like, wow. Can you imagine having those kids?
Oh,
so
gosh.
good.
Susan on Facebook said, at a party, I'm usually the one in the corner playing with the kids and the dog. They're easier to relate to. Susan, I'm right there with you. That's how I knew I wanted to have a kid, because I was like, really didn't like kids, didn't like babysitting, didn't like any of it. But then there was a point in time in my 30s where I was at dinner parties, and Ed, it was the opposite of you. I was like, I'm not interested in these adults and their dumb conversations anymore. The kids were infinitely more interesting. I thought, oh, maybe I want to have a kid.
Well, yeah, it was totally giving you that message, right? It's like your, I don't know what, your wise mind was giving you that message.
I think so.
I have a friend like that, actually. Whenever we got together, he would always be off with the kids. And he changed careers from being a fashion designer to a daycare teacher.
Oh my
so
gosh.
he was really getting those messages. And sometimes people maybe are not around children very much until their friends start having kids. So maybe heed those messages if you're having those feelings and you want to ditch your friend. Personally, I want to hang out with the grown-ups, personally. But
I agree. Well, now I'm at that stage again, too.
Okay, everybody, call it all Snoop Dogg fans out there. He's giving us something really interesting to think about. He told Rolling Stone recently that aging rappers, they don't get the same respect as the rock or the metal icons out there. Really interesting thing for him to say. Anybody want to weigh in on whether they agree or disagree?
Well, my first reaction, Mel, was thinking about like the actual genre of rap and hip hop and how kind of relatively new or young it is compared to, say, rock and roll, and how the oldest rappers, like including Snoop, I mean, Paul McCartney is old enough to be, Snoop's dad. So I kind of wanted him to unpack this sentiment a little more. Like, is he talking about, desiring more respect from his peers, from critics, about how hard he's had to work to stay relevant? Because I feel like a Paul McCartney or Mick Jagger could publish a collection of their Post-it notes and it would shoot to #1 on the bestseller list,
Ed?
Well, I think Jess is right. I mean, it's kind of unfair to put Snoop Dogg in the conversation with the Rolling Stones. They started in 1962. He was born in 1971, started making music, late 80s, early 90s. So I think he might be projecting a little bit. I think he's one of the most respected and legendary rappers of all time. And he's not part of a small group of incredibly respected Chuck D, Q-Tip, Mos Def, on and on and on. There's a pantheon of guys that, not just rock guys like myself, but all of the young rappers look up to and respect these guys. So I think he's just maybe having a moment in his 50s.
Well, can I ask that? Because I think by your logic, both Ed and Jess, what you're saying, by your logic, he shouldn't be feeling at 50 that he feels like he's washed up. By your logic, he should just be hitting his stride and peaking. And what I think he's saying is he's not getting or feeling that same support that maybe Mick Jagger was peaking at 50 or still peaking at 110 or whatever he happens to be at. And therein lies the difference. And I think that I actually, when he said that, I go, you know what? How many roasts have I seen of young rappers or things in the media of young rappers kind of, just teasing the older guys a bit, because in the game, Snoop Dogg is considered older. Even Ludacris is considered older. Yeah. And so there is something to that. And then I think of guys like Jay-Z or Diddy or Dre, and they may not be making huge hits anymore, but they transferred to behind the music. They became big producers, entrepreneurs, and they've kind of taken a back seat and now do cameos rather than headlining a big tour like Rolling Stones. So there's something to this.
I mean, Ed, I hate to put you on the spot. I know you're only 40, but have you worried about this at all? This is something women talk about all the time in any career, about worrying about losing their relevancy, and you don't often hear men talking about it.
Yeah, well, we don't have to worry about that in my band because we're so good. So it never really occurs to us. No, it's you have to be comfortable with the art you're making and why you're making it. And I still love to perform, and I make every record and I go out and do every tour, not because I'm anticipating being lauded by my peers and critics alike, but because I love to do it. And it is its own reward. And we don't get the same respect we did 20 years ago. Who cares? Like, who cares?
You know what, though? I appreciate that Snoop's making us think about all of this stuff, because until he said this, I'm just going to reveal my ignorance. I'm sorry. I didn't know there wasn't a hip hop Hall of Fame. So there is a rock and roll Hall of Fame, obviously. But, and so we're talking about systems, and he's just kind of calling out like what he's sensing and vibing. And I think that when we look around us in our culture, older white men are in positions of power in all the systems, and the music industry is included, So he's just kind of like calling that out. I appreciate that. Yeah.
But don't you, I almost feel like I want to take Snoop and say, listen, your second act is more interesting and more fun than a lot of rockers' second act. Like, Snoop is acting. He's acting in the Harmony Korine movies. He's got a wine out. He's got an album coming out. He's like best friends with Martha Stewart. I just want to give him like a pep talk and be like, Snoop, you're amazing.
I think we're having difficulty with Mel's ear right now. I'm feeling for you, Mel, but it's okay. We don't even worry about it. We're going to just transition to this next topic. Does your partner have any hobbies that annoy you? A writer for The Telegraph says her husband became a total bore after he took up running. We don't have a ton of time left, but have you dealt with anything like this? Ed.
Well, yeah, my wife drives me nuts. She is so organized and so on top of everything in our life, and just makes my life and the life of my children function completely smoothly. No, but I do annoy her. I'm a pinball freak, and it oozes into every conversation. I know she's totally tired of it, but she always says, it makes me very happy and it's harmless. So,
did you say pinball?
Yeah, I collect pinball machines.
Let's go back to
I
that.
love it.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask you, Ed. You are you're about to bring a whole lot of Christmas cheer to the stage next month with a full lineup of shows in Toronto. What has Bare Naked Ladies got in store for fans?
Well, it's our first residency in our hometown of Toronto since like 1990, 91, when we used to play back at the Ultrasound Show Bar. Yeah, we're doing at least 13 shows at the CAA Theatre on Yonge, just south of Bloor. It's going to be, all your favorite Bare Naked Ladies jams with a sprinkling of holiday hits from our Bare Naked for the Holidays record. And we're doing a couple of Sunday snack time matinee shows with music from our Juno Award-winning children's record, Snack Time.
Oh, my goodness, Ed.
Nice.
We love seeing you. Have fun in Vegas, which is where you are right now, and we look forward to seeing you in person soon. And for everyone at home, you can catch Hometown Holidays with Bare Naked Ladies at Toronto's CAA Theatre next month. Tickets are on sale now. Ed, we love you.
Thank you for having me. It's always lovely to be here.
Subscribe to the Social Podcast so you don't miss a fiery debate. Until next time, socialites.